So now we are going to connect the two edges of the fabric, the knitted edge as well as the working stitches. You can see here on the knitted edge, there's a hole between each stitch, and that's what we're going to use to pick up a stitch. So now we'll take our crochet hook and pick up the first working stitch from the needle. And we'll take that crochet hook and put it through the first stitch on the edge. And then we'll just go ahead and pull that yarn through to create our first join stitch for the body. Now we're just going to repeat this process until we get to the cable. So now we have 2 stitches. And there we go. So now we're going to start the cable. So for the cable, because it's more densely knitted than the regular knit or stockinette stitches, we're actually going to pick up 2 of the loops off the needle and go into 1 from the back. And that will allow the cable to lay flat. There you go. And then on the next stitch on the cable, which is the 3rd stitch of the strand, we'll just pick up 1. So for each strand of the cable, we'll pick up 2 stitches on the first and then 1 stitch on the second. So we're almost done with the cable. So once we get to the end of the cable, we'll just start picking up stitches on a more regular cadence from the needles and the back. Because the stitch width is wider than the stitch height, we will be skipping stitches on the knitted edge. And this will allow for the 2 layers to lay really flat nicely together. So you'll just follow the pattern for the skipping cadence, but it's just the same system where you'll pick up 1 stitch off the needle and then pop the crochet hook through the back edge loops and pull the yarn through to create a new stitch joining the 2 edges of the fabric. Once you've completed picking up the stitches with the 2 edges joined, you can just go ahead and transfer all those stitches to a needle. I'm using just a long circular needle. I think it's easy at this point. We'll switch over to a 16-inch circular needle later in the process, but for now it's just easy to use this longer one. And just transfer those stitches over. Now that we've connected the 2 edges, we'll continue picking up across the back of the collar. As you'll see, we're just going to start picking up 1 stitch at a time. We're going to do 2 stitches and then skip. And again, this is just so that the 2 different directions of knit lay flat against each other. And you can just follow the pattern for how many stitches you need to pick up. This will become second nature once you do it a few times. It's a little tricky at first, but you'll figure it out. And then you can just go ahead and transfer those stitches to the needle. Now I've counted my stitches backwards along the knitted edge to make sure that I have the right number for joining the two pieces of the fabric. So now we're just going to work the same thing we did on the other side, joining the two knitted edge and the working loops from the knitting. But this time the knitted edge is on top. Makes it a little bit easier actually, because you can see what you're doing on that edge. So we're just going to go ahead and follow the exact same steps that we did on the other side, but just backwards. So we're going to start out with the more consistent pickups, and then when we get to the cable, same thing, just repeat it the other way. As you can see, it's a lot easier to see what you're picking up on the edge when it's on top. And as you go, you can just transfer those stitches back to the needle